anything. So, as you can see, this retelling of the birth, the poor Mrs. Purefoy birth, is very funny because all the story is told as if we were reading a medieval play, no, completely out of context, no. So the man, the doctor, was drinking.
Yeah.
And so he took the cup that stood before him, for him needed never none asking nor desiring of him to drink. ¿Sí? No necesitaba que le pidieran que tomara porque tomaba igual. And now drink, said he, fully delectably, and he quaffed as far as he might to their both health, for he was a passing good man of his lastiness. And Sir Leopold, that was the goodliest guest that ever sat in Scholars' Hall, and that was the meekest man. This is very medieval, eh? The goodliest, the meekest, yes, and the kindest that ever laid husbandly hand under hen, and that was the very truest knight of the world, one that ever did menial service to lady, gentle pledge him courtly in the cup. Woman's woe with wonder pondering. So Mr. Bloom is worried about Mrs. Purefoy. And so he was the goodliest, the meekest, the truest, everything. And he asked the doctor to go and help the woman instead of drinking. Now, let us speak of that fellowship that was there to the intent to be drunken, and they might. So now we are going to get a description of all the other students who are there, no? There was a sort of scholars along either side of the board. That is to wit, Dixon Yclept Jr., this is one, of St. Mary Merciables, with other his fellows Lynch and Madden. So Dixon, Lynch, and Madden. Scholars of medicine. And the Franklin that had Lenehan, and one from Alba Longa. Alba Longa is the Roman name for Ireland.
Or, sorry?
Ireland. El nombre
Ireland.
romano.
Okay.
One Crothers and Jan Stephen that had mien of a friar that was at head of the board, and Costello that men Kleppen Punch Costello, all long of a mastery of him erewhile jested, and all of them, reserved young Stephen, see all the others, he was the most drunken that demanded still of more men. So they are all drunk, even Stephen. And beside the meek Sir Leopold. But on Jan Malaki, you remember Malaki is Stephen's friend, no? They waited for that he promised to have come. So they are waiting for Malaki, and such as intended to no goodness said how he had broke his vow. So he had told them that he was going, but he's not there. And Sir Leopold sat with them, for he bore fast friendship to Sir Simon and to his son, young Stephen. So Mr. Bloom stays there because he feels that he has some connection with Stephen, because he feels that Simon, Stephen's father, is his friend. And for that his languor becalmed him there after longest wanderings, in so much as they feasted him for that time in the honorablest manner. Ruth read him. So Mr. Bloom is there and he feels ashamed because all the doctors, all the student doctors are drunk and they have to help the woman to bring the baby into the world, and they are all drunk. So Mr. Bloom is really surprised and angry, no? Love led on with will to wander, loth to live. So he decides to stay, no? For they were right witty scholars, and he heard their our songs, each gen other, as touching birth and righteousness. Now we are going to see a discussion, a very interesting discussion among the students that Mr. Bloom hears, about the right of the mother or the right of the baby in case one of them has to die, no? if a decision has to be taken. So when it says Jan Madden, he is the reference is to the mother. Yes, Jan Madden maintaining that put such case in case that was the case, it were hard the wife to die. For so it had fallen out a matter of some year ago with a woman of Eblana in Horn's house that now was trespassed out of this world. And the self-night next before her death, all leeches and apothecaries had taken counsel of her case. So the discussion is, I mean, because there was a case of a woman, no, who died, and the idea was who has to die in case you have to decide between the life of the mother and the child. Why I say this is interesting, because the religions at that time, the Catholic and the Protestant religions, had different opinions about this. And they said further, she should live, because in the beginning they said the woman should bring forth in pain. And wherefore they that were of this imagination affirmed how Jan Madden had said truth, for he had conscience to let her die. So the Christian view, the Catholic view, sorry, was that the one who has to live is the woman. But the Protestants, and this is Jan Madden, said that the baby has to live. So two different opinions. And not few and not of these young Lynch were in doubt that the world was now right evil governed, as it was never other, howbeit the mean people believed it otherwise. But the law nor his judges did provide no remedy. The civil law had no, let's say, decision about this. Yes, so the ones who decided were the doctors. And I sent you the information because there were two hospitals, two maternity hospitals at the time in Dublin. One was Protestant, the other was Catholic, and they had different, opinions. A redress God grant. This was Kant said, but all cried with one acclaim, nay, by our virgin mother, sorry, the wife should live and the baby to die. Are you there? In color whereof they waxed hot upon that head, that what with argument and what for their drinking. So Mr. Bloom is worried because they are discussing this, but he sees that they are all drunk, no? And the Franklin Lenehan was prompt each when to pour them ale, so that at least the Weimers might not lack. Then Jan Madden showed all the whole affair and said how that she was dead, and how for holy religion's sake by read of Palmer and Bitzman, and for a vow he had made to Saint Altan of Abraham. Her Goodman, Saint Altan was the patron of children. So Madden said that he had a vow, no, a promise to the patron of children, and so he had to save the baby. Her Goodman husband would not let her death, whereby they were all wondrous grieved. To whom young Stephen had these words following. So here we see Stephen's point of view. But remember that Stephen has a lot of criticism against the Catholic Church, no? So he's going to be very cynical. But, so what does he say? A murmur, sirs, is eke oft among lay folk. Both babe and parent now glorify their maker. The one in limbo gloom, the other in purge fire. So Stephen said, when that doctor saved the baby, then the baby died. So both of them died finally. So Stephen says, now both of them, are in the baby in the limbo gloom. You know the story of the limbo, which was the Catholic.
Yeah, the limbo. If the baby is not baptized.
Yeah, exactly. If the baby is not baptized before he dies,
they went to the limbo.
Yes. babies that were not baptized and those who lived before Christ came. So the people, the ancient people, no? Well, that was a theory that.
Oh, this is ridiculous.
Sí, bueno,
No?
sí. Nowadays,
Well, sorry, but
no, it
it's
is.
religion, but it's
No, nowadays the Catholic Church doesn't believe in the limbo.
yes.
This was in the past.
I
But
know. Yes.
when I was a child, it existed, this idea of the limbo. They changed.
Yes.
Creo que se cambió después del, ¿cómo es? Del Congreso Vaticano, no me acuerdo cuál, cuando dejaron de hablar en latín en la misa. Creo que ahí también claro esto. So the baby in the limbo gloom and the mother, in purge fire. Purge fire is
el purgatorio.
Claro, the purgatory, claro. El purgatorio, claro, purgatory. But gramercy, what of those God possible souls that we nightly impossibilize, which is the sin against the Holy Ghost, very God, Lord and giver of life. So Stephen is saying, what is the sin? No? For, sirs, he said, our lust is brief. We are means to those small creatures within us, and nature has other ends than we. So he says, what is the sin? Because we are only creatures, and nature has other ends. So it's something naturally, we live or die. Then, said Dixon Jr. to Punch Costello with, he what ends. But he had overmuch drunken, and the best word he could have of him was that he would ever dishonest a woman, whoso she were, or wife, or maid, or leman, if it so fortuned him to be delivered of his spleen or of lusty head. So one of the doctors was so drunk that instead of giving his opinion, he says that he could dishonest a woman, no, that he could have sex with a woman, but nothing else. Whereat Crothers of Alba Longa sang Jan Malachi's praise of that beast the unicorn, how once in the millennium he cometh by his horn. The unicorn is a representation of Christ. That Malachi, yes, you remember Stephen's friend, who was also very blasphemous, no? He used the unicorn as Christ, which is of course a blasphemy. The other all this while pricked forward with their gyves wherewith they did malice him, witnessing all and several by Saint Photinos his engines, that he was able to do any manner of thing that lay in man to do. So this Malachi has played on this idea that Jesus was the unicorn that comes once in the millennium. No? So he will come again in a millennium. And in the meantime, you can do whatever you want. No? So you are free to do what you want. Thereat laughed they all, right jocundly, only young Stephen and Sir Leopold, which never durst laugh too open by reason of a strange humor, which he would not bewray, and also for that he rued for her, that there whoso she might be or wheresoever. So they all laughed at this, let's say, I would say rather body situation, no? Because they are talking about sex and about women as, you know, in a very irrespectably way. The only two who did not laugh were Stephen and Bloom. But Bloom, not only because he wasn't drunk, but also because he was worried. He rued for her. He was worried about Mrs. Puerford, because they are all having fun, and the woman was there, yes, trying to have the child's birth. Then spake young Stephen Orgolos of Mother Church, that would cast him out of her bosom, of love canons, of Lilith, patron of abortions, of bigness wrought by wind of seeds of brightness, or by potency of vampires, mouth to mouth. So Stephen thinks that he's going to be sent away from the church. Mother Church that would cast him out of her bosom. Why? He's thinking of his mother, because you remember that he didn't want to pray by his mother's deathbed. So he feels guilt, and he thinks that the church would cast him away. Of Lilith, Lilith is a character in the Bible that I think we talked about her. She is let's say, she's like a witch, because she is Eve, the woman that Adam was given before Eve. And she became a demon, yes? So that's why it says here, Lilith, patron of abortions, yes? Because Lilith, in the story, hates, doesn't want to have children. She hates having children. So that's why she is called patron of abortions. Of bigness wrought by winds of seeds of brightness, or by potency of vampires mouth to mouth. So he feels that he is going to be exonerated from the church. Or, as Virgilius says, by the influence of the Occident, or by the reek of moonflower. The influence of the Occident, that is philosophy. Stephen was, let's say, in favor of philosophy, and so you remember that he had a discussion about Aristotle or Plato. So that means he's not a Catholic. Or by the reek of moonflower. This is a flower, I sent you the picture of the flower, but the idea that reek of moonflower is the smell of menstruation. Or, and she lie with a woman which her man has but lain with, effecto secuto. Well, this is rather a very ridiculous theory. I sent you that a woman can can become pregnant of let's say having sex with two men, no, and keeping the seed of the first one, or something like that. Effecto secuto, a very ridiculous theory. Or peradventure in her bath, according to the opinions of Averroes and Moses Maimonides. I also sent you those theories because they are so funny, that you can become pregnant by going to a bathroom, and you know, when another woman went before, something so ridiculous. He said also how at the end of the second month, remember that this chapter is divided in the months of the pregnancy. So we are now at the end of the second month. A human soul was infused. This is very interesting. We are talking of Joyce, 1904, no? And this is the discussion that we still have today. Because the question is when a fetus becomes a human being. And we were witness of a lot of discussions about this, no? If it is, well, with all the question of the law of abortion. And here there is one theory. This theory is Saint Thomas, that it is at the end of the second month that the human soul was infused. No, so this could be the third month. And this was one of the, you remember when we discussed in Argentina the law of abortion, this was one of the positions, no?
Yes, yes.
So we are talking about St. Thomas, and we are talking about Joyce in 1904. So see how far the theory goes. So, and how in all our Holy Mother foldeth ever souls for God's greater glory, whereas, yes, mientras que, that earthly mother, which was but a dam to bear beastly, should die by canon. So, if we think, this is what Stephen is saying, that the soul is infused after the second month of pregnancy, the earthly mother which was but a dam to Bea Beastly. So the mother, the earthly mother, not the virgin mother, the earthly mother is only the place to bear, es como el recinto donde criar al bebé, ¿no? So she should die by canon, for so saith he that holdeth the fisherman's seal, ese es el Papa, the fisherman's seal, even that blessed Peter, on which rock was Holy Church for all ages founded. So, according to Stephen's theory, the mother should die because the baby after the second month has a soul. And the mother is only the place where to have the baby. She's not, I mean, she is only the receptacle where to have the baby, no? So, he says that this is according to the Pope, the fisherman's seal. Well, we don't know because Stephen is also inventing things, no? All they bachelors then asked of Sir Leopold, would he, in like case, so jeopard her person as risk life to save life? So they asked Mr. Bloom about his position. Now, what can Mr. Bloom be thinking of now? Of his own baby who died some weeks or 2 weeks, I don't remember.
11 days. 11 days.
11 days, thank you, Teresa. 11 days after his birth. So he's obviously thinking of the baby, no? Awareness of mind, he would answer as fitted all. And laying hand to jaw, so imagine his position, hand to jaw, he said, dissembling, as his wont was, that as it was informed him who had ever loved the art of physic and as might a layman, and agreeing also with his experience of so seldom seen an accident, it was good for that mother church, belike at one blow had birth and death pence, in such sort deliberately he escaped their questions. So, Mr. Bloom didn't answer. He escaped the question, no? Because, he says, he's only, he knows physics, he knows medicine like a layman. He's not a professional. And his experience also, no? So he wouldn't answer who of them should lead. That is truth, Pardee, said Dixon, and I, or I err, a pregnant word. So you see, Dixon, one of the students there, is joking because they are discussing something very serious, but he says, oh, this is a pregnant word, making a joke using the words, no? Which hearing young Stephen was a marvelous glad man, and he averred that he who stealeth from the poor lendeth to the Lord, for he was of a wild manner when he was drunken, and that he was now in that taking it appeared eftsoon. So again, Stephen changing the words, no? What the Bible says is that you cannot take the money from the king if you have to pay. You know the famous saying, the money that has to be paid for the taxes has to be paid, no? To the king, and he uses the same words but in the opposite sense. He averred that he who stealeth from the poor, el que roba a los pobres, se lo dé al Señor. Yes. So Stephen is always very critical of the church, no? But Sir Leopold was passing great maugre his word, because he still had pity of the terror-causing shrieking of shrill women. So Mr. Bloom is still very, very anxious, no? Because he heard the cry of the women in their labor, and as he was minded of his good Lady Marian. Who is Lady Marian?
Molly.
So now he remembers when Molly was in labor, no? That had borne him an only man-child. Yes, this is which on his 11th day, thank you, Teresa, you remember this, only had died, and no man of art could save so dark his destiny. So poor Mr. Bloom, now he's again, you know, with this thought of his baby boy. And she was wondrous stricken of heart, for that evil hap, and for his burial did him on a fair corslet of lamb's wool. I don't know if we read this before, but they buried the baby in a corselet, como un saquito, un enterito, que había tejido Molly, ¿sí? A fair corselet of lamb's wool, the flower of the flock, lest he might perish utterly, alike a killed. So they gave him these clothes to bury the baby in case he was cold, no? For it was then about the midst of winter. And now Sir Leopold, that had of his body no man-child for an heir, looked upon his friend's son, and was shut up in sorrow for his poor past happiness. And as sad as he was that him failed a son of such gentle carriage, for all accounted him of real parts, so grieved he also in no less measure for young Stephen, for that he lived riotously with those wastrels and murdered his goods with horse. So here we find the first connection between Bloom and Stephen, father and son. Mr. Bloom doesn't have a son, and he is very, very sad about this. He suffers for this. And he sees Stephen as the son he could have had. And he is sad because this Stephen is living badly, riotously, wasting his time with these people and with whores, with prostitutes. So he feels that Stephen could be his son, and this son is lost. Yes. So, Malena?
He's lost because of his behaviors.
Of course. Yes. That's why Mr. Bloom is sad, because he feels that this Stephen could be his own son. Yes. About that present time, young Stephen filled all cups that stood empty, so as there remained but little more, if the prudenter had not shadowed their approach from him, that still plied it very busily. So Stephen goes on drinking, no? And remember that Stephen doesn't have money, he's poor. You remember what he collects as a teacher. So he earns little money and he spends a lot of money on drinking like this time, because he's the one who is inviting the others, no? Praying for the intentions of the sovereign pontiff, he gave them for a pledge the vicar of Christ, which also, as he said, is vicar of Bray. Now drink we, quoth he, of this macer, and quoth he, this mead, which is not indeed parcel of my body, but my soul's bodiment. So Stephen is now using the words that Jesus used when he says, drink from this wine. Yes, this is my blood. Yes, this is the most important part of the Mass. And it is a great blasphemy to be imitating the situation with, in this case, with beer, no, but with anything. So Stephen is becoming blasphemous, seriously blasphemous. This is, again, one of the reasons why the book was not accepted at that time, no? Because he goes on, leave your fraction of bread to them that live by bread alone. Yes. So again, the question of bread at the Mass. Be not that
the Protestants say, the Protestant critic the transubstantialism of Christ.
Transubstantiation, claro.
I couldn't pronounce it. Transubstantiation?
Transubstantiation.
Okay.
Yes. The Protestants, of course, don't believe in this, and I mean, this is very offensive for the Catholics, no? and then leave your fraction of bread, ¿no? Partamos el pan. O sea, es very, very, I mean, offensive. Be not afeared, neither for any want, for this will comfort more than the other will dismay. Again, repeating words that Christ uses. Don't worry about your future, yes, because you will have what you need. See you here. And he showed them glistering coins of the tribute and goldsmith notes, the worth of £2.19 that he had, he said, for a song which he read. So, of course, Stephen is lying here because he didn't receive any money for a song or for a poem. He wanted to get money from his poem, but he didn't. They all admired to see the foresaid riches in such dearth of money as was here before. So he doesn't have money, he has little money, and even so he uses his money to buy more alcohol, no? His words were then these as follows. Know all men, he said, time's ruins build eternity's mansions. So think of this phrase that Stephen says. Time's ruins build eternity's mansions. Yes, so you see, again, he goes on with this idea, this negative idea about faith, no?